Hello, everyone, and welcome to GE1 Module 3, The Self as a Cognitive Construct. So, last time we talked about how society views the self, and in this video, we are going to learn how psychologists view and define the self. Our targets for this lesson are the following. First, to identify the different ideas in psychology about the self. Second, to create your own definition of self based on the definitions from psychology. And third is to analyze the effects of various factors identified in psychology in the formation of the self. So, we will be talking about the concepts of the self as presented by William James, Carl Rogers, Sigmund Freud, and George Herbert Mead. We are also going to talk about the different types of self and learn a thing or two about the social comparison theory. So let us begin with our first psychologist, William James. So, who is William James? James was the founder of the Harvard Psychology Department, and he is known as the father of American psychology. So, what is his contribution to the definition of the self? James is one of the psychologists who used or who introduced the terms I and me self. So, what is the difference between the two? The I is the thinking, acting, and feeling self. So, it is the part of the self that allows you to be consciously aware of who you are. The me self, on the other hand, refers to the physical characteristics as well as the psychological capabilities that make you who you are. So, this involves the knowledge and the thoughts related to who you think you are. So, when you think of the me self, it is a separate individual. It is another individual you refer to when you're talking about your personal experiences. For example, in the statement, I know it was me who wrote the letter. The I is the subject or the one who thinks, while the me is the object or the one who does the action, that is writing. James further divided the me self into three: the material, the social, and the spiritual. The material self is made up of objects, places, or even people which have the label mine or akon. Basically, it involves everything that you own. Like if you have a car, then your car, your house, your clothes, your cell phone, your shoes, even your family and your friends and your body. The social self, on the other hand, refers to who you are in a specific social situation. So it is essentially yourself as viewed by other people. The spiritual self, on the other hand, is who we are at our core. So it includes our personality, our values, our conscience, our emotions, and our drives. This self remains stable or it rarely changes throughout our lifetime. Next, we have Carl Rogers. So, who is he? Carl Rogers was a humanistic psychologist and he was famous for his personality theory. In this theory, he presented the notion of self or self concept. Self concept is defined as the organized, consistent set of perceptions and beliefs about oneself. So, when we say again self concept, it is what comes into your mind when people ask you about who you are. Another thing that you need to know is that the self, the identity, and self concept are not fixed in one time frame. So, what does this mean? So, for example, when You are asked about who you are. You can say that you were a basketball player or a band member in high school, which pertains to the past. And then you are a college student, which pertains to the present, meaning right now you are a college student. And also, you are a police officer or a businessman or businesswoman in the future. So, this tells us that you, your characteristics, your social roles and responsibilities, and what you think of yourself are neither fixed for life nor always changing every moment. So, remember in our previous lesson, one of the characteristics of the self is its malleability. So, just like metal, the self can also be molded or shaped by our social interactions and our life experiences. So, this is captured in Rogers' concept of self schema. So, Rogers introduced self schema, but before we talk about self schema, let us first define what schema is. So, a schema is a mental structure that a person uses to organize knowledge. So, take a look at the picture. For example, a child first develops a schema for a dog. So, kakita siya ido. She knows that a dog has four legs, it has hair, and a tail. Then, another situation. When the child encounters another animal, and sa picture it's a cat, so naka-encounter naman siya another animal for the first time, the child might think that it is also a dog. After all, it fits the description of what a dog is. May apat ka tiil, it has hair, and may ikog. Once the child is corrected and told that it is not a dog but a cat, the child will modify or will change her existing schema or knowledge of the dog, and then the child will create a new schema for a cat. So, again, when we say schema, it is a mental structure that a person uses to organize knowledge. So, in this case naman, the self schema refers to our organized system or collection of knowledge of who we are. So take a look at the diagram on the screen. According to Rogers, the self is affected and shaped by different factors, such as your family, your hobbies, your religion, and your nationality. Other factors may include your interest, your work, your age, your physical characteristics, and the like. And as you grow and as you mature, these factors also change. So they change how we see things, how we think about things, and how we feel about things. Rogers also introduced the concepts of the real self and the ideal self. So ano naman ni ang real and ideal? The real self is who we actually are. Kung sino ka gidya. It is how you think, how you feel, how you look, and how you act. The real self can be seen by others. However, because we have no way of truly knowing how others view us, the real self becomes our self image. So, in simple terms, we might see ourselves as a good person or a bad person, beautiful or ugly. Our self image actually affects how we think, how we feel, and how we behave. On the other hand, when we say ideal self, it is how we want to be. So it is an idealized image that we develop over time based on what we have learned and what we have experienced. So, your ideal self could include aspects such as what your parents taught you, what you admire in other people, what society promotes, and what you think is in your best interest. So, your ideal self also consists of your goals and ang imong mga ambitions in life. And please take note that your ideal self is dynamic. That is forever changing. So, ang ideal self mo sang bata ka pa is not the same sa ideal self mo sang teenage years mo and will most likely change as you grow older.